what we'll do is we'll start off just giving you a little bit of information about myself and Frank, and then we're going to just dive right into the content. And the goal from my perspective, and Frank, feel free to chime in, is to help you to be more effective, more efficient, and really understand LinkedIn at another level. Frank and I'll both, tell you that this is kind of like an amazing tool that if you can use it the right way and have the right mindset about it, it could be a game changer. But it's not for everybody's. But that's your job, is to sort of judge based on what you hear and what you know, if this is something that you want to focus on. A little bit about myself. I'm a 3-time author. I'm not an attorney, but I work with attorneys the last 12, 13 years. And I just spend all my time helping attorneys, whether they become my client or not. That's not a big deal. It's really just about trying to educate the attorneys that on all the things they never learned in law school, mainly business development and marketing, branding. And I've got a really great podcast called Be That Lawyer. If you haven't heard it, I just interviewed Frank recently. Jordan's on there, Jordan Ostroff, and a ton of other people. And it's a great way to get information. I just did Frank's podcast and Jordan's and all that. So it's lots of great information on there. And then I do offer 2 programs just to give you an idea of what I do for attorneys. And I've got a couple clients on the call today, but I either help attorneys through a coaching and training program that's very intensive, where I teach them all the things they never learned in law school, coach them, work with them. And the goal for many of those attorneys is to double or triple their book in about 12 to 16 months. And I definitely have a history of doing that. And that's my passion, is helping people get pretty dramatic growth. A lot of the clients that I work with and some others also flow into my peer advisory groups, which are like masterminds, where it's lawyers working as a power team with each other to offer advice, accountability, help, etc., so that they can get things to the next level or maintain where they're going. So that's a little bit about me and what I do. Let's go to Frank. Frank, you want to give your infomercial?
Yes, thanks so much, Steve. And by the way, I do recommend you follow Steve on LinkedIn and on his other platforms, and certainly follow his website. He has a lot of great content there, and he gives a lot of free, very valuable content, which is rare these days. I'm Frank Ramos. I'm in Miami. I work at a firm called Clark Silverglate. Been here 23 years, my 24-year career as an attorney. I do commercial employment and products litigation, and I give away a lot of free information on my own at my website, miamimentor.com. There's about 20 books I've written, 19 of which are free, on marketing, the practice, leadership, and so forth. So you're welcome to go there and download my books and some of my articles and some podcast interviews I've given. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, been posting daily since the fall of 2016, have almost 60,000 followers, and going to share what I've learned over the last several years on the platform.
Yeah, thank you so much, Frank. And just to give you all an idea of what we're going to be covering today, here's the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about why LinkedIn, and I'm going to have Frank kind of take the reins on that. I'm going to talk a little bit about setting up a killer profile that gets you noticed, and I'm going to go take you through a live demo on that. We're going to flip it back to Frank on creating a unique strategy for your goals, as well as driving interaction and engagement, building that brand. And then lastly, I'm going to wrap up with using LinkedIn as a business development tool for you or for your firm, and how to really go proactively to get those inside connections and get business, actual business. Yes, it happens, from LinkedIn. All right. So with that, let's talk a little bit about why LinkedIn. And I'm going to stop the share for a second, and let's just hash this out. So Frank, do you want to share a little bit about why LinkedIn?
Sure. We're in a culture right now where we're all working remotely because of COVID. And even when things return back to normal, we've been in this situation for so long that we've really changed the way we interact and market and speak and interact with one another. And so social media is taking a much larger role, and those platforms have become that much more important. And of all the social media platforms, LinkedIn is the one most suitable for what we do as lawyers in terms of interacting and reaching out to potential clients, whether you're on the plaintiff or defense side, criminal or civil. Whatever you do, that really is the platform du jour to be involved with. And so maybe 2 or 3 years ago, LinkedIn was more of a novelty. Now it's become sort of a must for your marketing efforts. And Steve will talk to you about how to augment and really make a very professional looking profile, and we'll discuss jointly how to reach out to people. But that's really sort of the reason. I think somebody may need to mute their phone. I hear some feedback. And so that's really the why. I mean, this is really, for whatever reason, the legal field has always been behind the curve when it comes to technology, when it comes to social media and new approaches to marketing. And COVID sort of pulled us and kicking and screaming into this new brave world. And this is the new reality. Do you have to be on LinkedIn? No. Should you? Yes. And are there advantages? Most definitely.
Yeah, and just to add to that for a second, here's the thing I'd like to say, and you guys can take this how you want, but I'd like everyone to hold their phone up real quick to the screen. All right. Now I'd like you to take it. You don't have to do this. This is a rhetorical thing. Take it and go throw it in a toilet and leave it there. Okay. Because this is the most powerful tool we have for business development, for handling business outside of our office. And this has replaced the corded phone. And if you're my age or older, you remember corded phones, you remember rotary dials and all that. And LinkedIn is the smartphone of business development, of marketing, of branding. So to not use it would be the equivalent of getting rid of your smartphone and going back to a rotary phone. And again, not for everybody, but for the people that want to progress and move forward in their evolution of their branding, their marketing, their business development, it's a pretty great tool. And I'm pretty critical because I find fault with a lot of things on social media and in LinkedIn. There's certainly going to be some flaws, but there's definitely a lot of silver linings through the clouds if you look closely enough and follow direction. And that's what we're hoping to do today. So I'm going to go back and share my screen again and walk you through some key elements to developing a great profile. And I guess I'm saying my profile is great. You could tell me otherwise, but I've spent a lot of time on this, a lot of mental energy. But a couple things that I'll share. Number one is really important to get your URL, your LinkedIn URL. So this is like your website. I mean, LinkedIn might even be more important than your website because in some ways it's really giving a lot more of your resume than a typical website, page might give. And so you want to make sure you adjust this. And how you do that is you go over to the right here and click on Edit Public Profile and URL. And it'll walk you through the changes that you need to make. It's 1 or 2 steps. It's really simple. And if your name is Scott White and there's 1,000 Scott Whites or more, you may not get Scott White. So I can get Steve Fretzin as my custom URL because I'm one of a kind. My wife will tell you. Maybe kind of tongue in cheek. And then, but you might have to do Scott White Law. You might do Scott White IP. Something to kind of differentiate yourself. But I think a custom name is really important. Second, that this is where people are going to kind of get their first impression of you. So highly recommend not only putting up some form of a banner, that could be your law firm's banner. It could be what represents what you do. If you're in commercial real estate, you might want to put some construction or some skyline. If you're in IP, you might want to put some things that represent IP. I'm not exactly sure. Let's say you're in biotech. Maybe you're going to want to put some cool, biotech, type of image there. I went from a professional like suit and tie image to my podcast image with Michael Jordan in the background. This is my very famous now autographed Michael Jordan jersey that some people are jealous of. Not everybody. If you're from Chicago, maybe you are. And the microphone. So this is something that I chose to do because I'm really focused on the podcast. And of course, this is something new too. I spoke to a woman, I was telling Frank from Ireland yesterday, and her name is Emir, and it's spelled in a funky way where people continually destroy the pronunciation of her name. And I said, "Did you know about this little microphone, this little megaphone next to your name?" And she's like, "No, what's that?" I go, "Watch this. Steve Fretzin." So it just says my name in the pronunciation because Fretzin might seem easy, but it's not a normal name in the sense like Smith or Jones. So that's it. And then this is also something that I recommend doing. And most attorneys, and you probably have this, you probably have your law firm name right here. This is where it says that you're a partner at a law firm. That could be your firm. That could be the firm you belong to. I would suggest changing this to what you do or how you add value to your audience. Also, real quick, if you're not muted, unless you have a question, please mute. That would just help from disruption. Thanks so much. And just everybody check your mute real quick and just make sure you are. So the only reason I put attorney whisperer, because I don't want to say like, oh, I'm the attorney whisperer, and I'll show you why in a minute. But in one of my recommendations that I got recently from a terrific estate planning attorney named Nina Stillman, she called me the attorney whisperer. So I said, all right, I'll run with that, and that's why I put that up there. But our attorney clients create a never-ending stream of new business. So that's sort of what I do, and that's important for attorneys that are reading this. Like, what's my value? What am I doing for you? What could I do for you? As opposed to just saying that I'm the president of Fretzton Inc. and the host of Be That Lawyer, which, by the way, is said later on. Like, that information exists, but it's a little further down the page. Another important factor, and by the way, if you have any questions, just jump in and chime in, and we'll handle them. Is your contact information.
If either of you guys have creator mode.
Wait, what was that, Jordan?
Do either of you guys have access to creator mode that LinkedIn rolled out like last week sporadically or not?
I don't have creator mode. Jordan, you want to explain what that is?
I don't really know. In essence, they talked about like the ability to edit the organization of your profile a little bit, but like I've only come across 2 or 3 people that have it. So I didn't know if either of you guys had it yet.
I don't know.
No, but as soon as we wrap up here today, I'm certainly going to look in at, because I'm paying for the premium. So I don't know if that's a premium value add, but that's, I'm certainly curious about that. Something really important, everybody, is making sure that all your contact information is here. Making sure generally that your profile is complete. Think about this. If you're going to buy a new kitchen for your home and you go to a website that's called Kitchens, and you go on their website and you go to look at some sample kitchens and it says under construction, or it says this page cannot be found. Do you stay with that Kitchens website, or do you leave? I think 90% of you would leave, maybe higher. So the importance of having a full and complete and robust profile, I can't really emphasize that enough, that this is how the public is viewing you, whether they're interested in working with you as their lawyer, or whether they're just curious about something about you because they saw a post that you had and now they're checking you out. Okay. So you can notice I've got both of my websites. I've got my phone number, my address, my email, even my birthday, which is coming up if anybody wants to send me some lovely gifts. Just kidding. Don't do that. But so that's really important. And then 2 more things I'll share with you that I think are critical. Then we'll move to Frank. Is this about page. This is really an important part of your profile. And you either want to have it professionally written, or you want to make sure you take the time to write it out in a way that's going to resonate. So the goal here is to draw people in. You don't want them to read the first sentence and leave. So if you have this as a list of your skills, I'm a labor and employment attorney, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this, chances are people are just going to read a sentence and leave. They're not going to continue. You're not drawing them in like a story might draw you in as a reader. So I try to start off with just kind of like, this is what I'm up to. Then I go into some pain points that lawyers typically have. So they agonize with business development. They feel alone and isolated. So what am I doing there? This is like, advertising 101. I mean, think about all the different commercials that we sometimes have to watch or forced to watch nowadays. And a lot of them talk about like, these are the problems that you have, and this is what our pill solves, or this is what our car solves, or whatever it is that the product or service is. Okay. And then I come up with like, what's my benefit, or kind of like what I'm helping lawyers crush it. And then at the bottom here, I just add my skills, which could help with, the internal LinkedIn SEO or internal LinkedIn, wording.
Hey, Steve.
Obviously adding information about things that you've been involved in, articles, interviews, TV.
Hey,
and
Steve.
Then, yeah, question. Sure.
Yeah. So some people do the summary about in the third person.
Yep.
You did it in the first person.
Yep.
Which do you prefer?
So the funny thing is, Cole, that I had it set up in the third person for, up until maybe a year ago. That's how I had it set up. And I'm just trying something new. I'm just seeing, do I get feedback on it? Do I, what do people think about it? It's really a preference. Some people don't like to talk about themselves. So that third person is great because it's like a reporter talking about you versus you talking about you. And you
Right.
also have to be careful about, talking about yourself as an expert, right? That's not legit. So there's ways to do it that might be better for some than others. But Frank, do you have anything you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I do it in the third person as well because it allows you to sort of brag on yourself without sounding as if you're kind of patting yourself too much in the back. Either is fine. Certainly, the first person is more personal, and that's how Steve does it. And it's really a personal decision. I don't think one is better than the other. It's just a question of what you're more comfortable with.
One last question about this. How different should it be from your firm bio on your website?
I think it should be significantly different. I think the firm bio is going to be very, I don't know what you want to call it, like analytical. It's going to be, just, punching out the different, bar associations that you're affiliated with, and that, it's going to be all your accolades and all that, but it's not really drawing in the reader the way this might. And this can be a more personal thing because this is an individual coming into your LinkedIn that may want to connect with you, that may have business for you or want to be a partner with you. And if you can really emphasize, it's almost like an infomercial at a networking event. You wouldn't give your bio from your website at a networking event. This is going to be a little looser, and it's more about how do you connect with someone, maybe more so than giving a more of a I don't know, antiseptic type of answer on your website. Frank, you want to chime in on that as well?
Yeah, I think first of all, firm websites have changed a lot, and I think you have to have more of a personal approach to your website. And if you haven't updated your website in the last 12 months, it's time to do so, both in terms of content and in terms of the way it looks. But I agree with Steve that LinkedIn is very much your opportunity to get somebody's attention very quickly. You have 3 seconds basically to get somebody's attention. And as Steve mentioned, in terms of the photo you use, the backdrop, the brief description versus saying I'm just a partner of so-and-so, to sort of have a hook to bring somebody into your profile and your about, that first sentence or two are really the most important sentences. Most people aren't going to read past that. And so that first sentence or two are the ones that are really going to grab somebody's attention. And those are going to be your key selling points.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Great questions. I'm going to wrap up with something that I don't know if it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission at your firm, if you're at a large firm in particular. But I'm a huge proponent and fan of recommendations. And you'll see this immediately because I have 116. That's a lot of recommendations. Now, I don't think you need 116. I don't think you need maybe more than 5 or 10. But I really am a fan of recommendations. And I don't know if you guys have picked up on this. I'm sure you have, that social proof has really become one of the most important things that helps buyers make buying decisions. For example, I am looking to take my wife out for dinner. We have a great reservation at a beautiful Chicago restaurant. Now we're thinking about changing plans and going to a different neighborhood. And I'm going to look up a bunch of restaurants online in a certain neighborhood in Chicago, and I'm going to read reviews. And that's how I make a buying decision today, now more than ever. It's about social proof. So if you have a few clients that would be open and happy to recommending you or to giving you some social proof about the kinds of things that you do better, faster, stronger than other people, asking for those recommendations and even giving them a little coaching on what to write. Because I can tell you that somebody's saying, here's Nina Stillman, the one I mentioned earlier, okay? If Nina said, I like Steve, Steve is good job, Steve. That's okay, right? That's fine. Nowhere, and I didn't like coach her to write the lawyer whisperer, but that to me is like, wow, what a wonderful thing to say, about, like that's just stroking my ego and making me feel good that I'm doing good for my clients. And when you do right for your clients and you save the day, or you go above and beyond, or you just know that you're valuable to them, and you ask them and say, look, I'm trying to, get a little more visibility with my law practice. And I know you've been really happy with the work we've done and the relationship we have. If I sent you a LinkedIn request for a recommendation, would you be open to writing a couple sentences about your experiences with me? And they would say, absolutely. I would be so thrilled to do that for you. And then they write it. And now you've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. And this is another thing that people are looking over to identify that you're different, better, faster, stronger than the other attorney up the street. And it's that social proof that that really could win the day. And I think I saw David Gower on the call. Here's David Gower. Thank you, David. Okay. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna stop the share. I'm gonna go back to Frank, and he's gonna talk a little bit about strategy and how to use LinkedIn, and also to how to develop interaction and engagement on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Dave. I think the first thing you're going to do if you're new to the platform or you're debating what to post, go to your core practice areas and ask yourself, what do you do in terms of what your core practice areas are? And then look back at what you've written, what you've spoken on, discussions you've had with your clients, discussions you've had with the other attorneys at your office, and come up with a list of ideas or topics that you can write about. Now, LinkedIn posts are limited to 1,300 characters. It's a few sentences, a couple paragraphs. It comes and goes very quickly. So you can see how easy it is to post regularly and always have fresh content. You can take, let's say, an article you did, like, top 10 things on trust in the States. Well, each of those top 10 things could be one post over a period of 10 days. Maybe it's a presentation you did on cybersecurity and you have like a 30-slide slide deck. Well, each of those slides could be one post over a month. So pick a topic or an area that you feel really comfortable with that is sort of your area that you want to become known as an expert. Because ultimately you want to develop an expertise on the platform. You want others to think of you when they think of that practice area and when they have a case in your geographic region. And the more you post and the more you push out content, free content, the more attention you're going to get, the better it's going to improve for your algorithm, because LinkedIn is going to be pushing it out to more of your followers and connections and others. And the more people are going to see you and see you as that person, as that go-to person in that area of the law. And a lot of attorneys have a couple issues. One, they feel uncomfortable posting or sharing about themselves. They want to say things the perfect way. They want to make sure that whatever they're expressing sounds just right. You're going to make mistakes on this platform, and you're going to stub your toe and you're going to fall down sometimes in your face. You just have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off. If you're too afraid to post and what people are going to think, you're never going to get off the starting dates. You just have to try. I've been posting daily for about almost 5 years now. And along the way, I'm sure I've made some pretty dumb posts and made some mistakes that I've had to backtrack and maybe even delete one or two of them. But that's just the process. It's just the way it is. And so you have to get past that fear and just start posting. And two, people always wonder, well, what do I post? What content do I post? And I think really the best thing is to really just pick one area, two areas. It doesn't necessarily have to be your practice area, but that's generally sort of the default, and it's probably the best thing to do. What I post, and for those of you who follow me, I generally post advice for young lawyers and professionals, although I find that a lot of older professionals and lawyers also follow me and share my content and refer cases to me, even though I don't typically post on substantive areas of the law. I provide a lot of inspiration and motivational posts on a daily basis. And so that's sort of how you do it. And then, when do you post? I don't think it really matters. Some people prefer to post in the morning or the afternoon. How do you post? Download the LinkedIn app and use it on your phone. As Steve mentioned, you get used to using your phone, because a lot of us forget how much downtime we have. How often are we in the supermarket in the waiting line? How often are we waiting for dry cleaning? We're at a hearing or a deposition. Even though maybe these days we're doing it remotely, we're just sort of sitting around waiting. Try to use that downtime and maximize it and use that time to create posts. In the evenings when I'm watching the news, I'm on social media and I'm thinking of posts to share. So those are the sort of things you should be thinking of doing. It doesn't take that much time to do a 1,300 character post. It doesn't have to be 1,300 characters. Some of my posts are only a sentence or two. Try different things. Understand that there's a book called Hook Point, and the author's name will come to me in a minute, but basically it came out last year. And the premise of the book is that you have 3 seconds to get somebody's attention on social media. The author is actually Brendan Kane, and he's written other books on social media. He's not a lawyer, he's not somebody in that field, but he does address a lot of the things we are learning about. I strongly recommend the book. It's been downloaded on your phone. And his premise is that you have 3 seconds to get somebody's attention. And
Hey,
you're not that. Hello?
Frank, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What was the name of the book?
Hook Point.
Book Point?
Hook, as in
Book Point. Thank you.
as the hook of a song. Basically, like when you listen to a song, popular song on the radio, what's the hook? What catches your attention? what's that earworm? Well, that's the same premise of the book. Like you have 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention, and if you don't grab it, they're moving on, because that's what we're doing these days. And so if you only have 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention, that first line or those first few words are the ones that you have to grab somebody's attention. So there's two parts of any post. There's what you say and how you say it. What you say is going to be generally your practice area, what you want to focus on, what people want you to be, what you want to be known for. And then it's how you say it. You have to say it in an interesting and captivating way. This isn't a law review. This isn't some bland copy you have in your website or in your brochures. You have 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention. And so what I typically do in my posts is those first few words, that first phrase are crucial. And what you'll see and what I recommend, by the way, is you do a lot of beta testing with your posts. And what I mean by that is, and this is the second point of the book in Hook Point, is that yes, you have 3 seconds and you have to figure out what your specific audience likes and enjoys. And so post lots of different things in lots of different ways and see what people are following. In each of your posts, you can see how many people have viewed the post, how many likes, how many shares. There's some analytics. There's a add-on you can purchase. It's called Shield, and you can try it, I think, for free for 2 weeks. It's SHIELD. I have it, and it provides you a lot more detailed analytics about who's looking at your posts, who's following them, who's liking them. It gives you comparisons from 1 week to the next, from 1 month to the next, in terms of your engagement rate, in terms of who's really connecting with your posts. And it seems kind of scientific. It really isn't. It's very intuitive. All of this is very intuitive. You put a post and you see how people are reacting to it. And if people aren't reacting to it, there's probably a reason. The way LinkedIn works is that you do a post and they share it with a small group of your followers and connections. They don't share it with everybody. They only share it with maybe a few dozen, maybe a few hundred people, and they see what the reaction is. And if it's positive, they'll push it out to more people. And if it's positive there, they'll keep pushing it out. That's how certain posts become viral. Some of my posts have gotten 1 million views because initially that first group of people really liked it. The next group of people really liked it, and so on and so forth. Some of my posts have gotten less than 1,000 views. And because for whatever reason, it wasn't resonating with the audience. And you'll start seeing patterns. What you'll start noticing is just, and this doesn't take a lot of time. You'll just look at your post and you'll say, oh, this post worked, this one didn't, this one worked, this one didn't. And you'll start noticing, well, when I write a post about X, people really relate to it. And I write a post about Y, they don't. And so you start putting more coins in the sort of in the column of the X one versus the Y one, and you start tweaking how you present, so that now when I do posts, I can almost know it automatically which ones are going to take off and which ones aren't. Now, I'm not saying you always do posts that are going to go viral or that you want to go viral. You really can't control that. And a lot of my posts, I know when I post them, aren't going to get a huge following, but they're part of an overall strategy I'm doing. I do a lot of posts on very specific aspects about the practice, on depositions, on hearings, on writing. I know that only a small group of people are going to actually like those posts because they're very limited and they have a very limited response, but it's part of my overall strategy and how I want to portray myself on the platform. I know my posts that are more inspirational, motivational are the ones that really kind of take off. The ones that talk about people, push forward, move forward, you fall, you get up. Those are sort of posts that I do that, have 50, 100, 250,000 views. And so I do a mix of that. And that's kind of my approach. So I've gone from back in, I've been on the platform since 2007. Initially, the platform was very much one about sharing your resumes and your CVs. It was really one where, you got jobs, you hired people, and that's really evolved a lot. So it evolved a lot the last 18 months due to COVID, last 12 months, I should say. And so a lot more people are on the platform. A lot more people that you want to connect with are now on the platform. And the platform has really expanded so that people are starving for content. And only 1% of the people on the platform post regularly. So of the 300, 400, 500 million people on the platform, a small fraction of that post regularly. And even a smaller fraction stay on message. They post regularly, but they're kind of all over the place. And so if you have a focus to what you're saying and you're saying consistently and regularly and you're sharing freely, then you're going to develop a relationship with an audience. And I don't want to take up too much Steve's time, but one last anecdote before I stop. It's sort of akin is that you're creating sort of a social contract with your audience. And this is an anecdote I've used before. When I was growing up in Chicago in the 70s and 80s, there's a lot less security in the airports. And so you would go in the airports, you can actually drop off and pick up people right where the plane is on the tarmac, in the terminal. And there's a lot of Hare Krishnas. That was a very popular sect at the time. And what they would do, and they learned early on, that if they asked for donations, people wouldn't give them anything. But if they gave you something first and then asked for a donation, the amount of giving increased exponentially. And so they create a social contract. They would give you a little flower or a booklet, and then suddenly you'd reach in your wallet or your purse and you give them $1 or $2, whatever it might be. LinkedIn is very similar to that. The more you give, the more you get. The more information you share with others, the more you're going to get back, because you're creating a social contract with at least some of your followers and your connections. Not everybody, but some of them are going to feel indebted to you because you're providing them free, regular content. Let's take the example of the trust in the states lawyer. You're constantly posting about trust in the states, constantly sharing ideas about wills and things to look out for, and maybe something you say rings a bell with them in terms of a parent or somebody, and they reach out to you and they want to give back to you, so they put you in touch with one of their contacts who needs a will drafted or has some trust issue or some litigation issue. That's how this works. You're building a tribe, you're building a following, you're building relationships online that ultimately you just don't know are going to pay you back. Yesterday I had some gentleman come into my office to refer me a case because he's been following me on LinkedIn for a while. I didn't know who he was, but we met, and I'm going to be handling a fairly significant commercial matter for him. So that's how this works. You're pushing content out there. You're not completely in control of what the response will be, but there will be a response. You have more lines in the water, and eventually you're going to catch a fish.
Frank, I have two questions for you to continue this piece of the presentation. Number one is commenting or sharing other people's posts and the value of mainly commenting on other people's posts and adding your 2 cents, or you talk about that a little. And then the other is the strategy of connecting with people. I feel like many of the people on this call are not sure when they get an invite that they should accept it or not. And do you have any thoughts on that? But let's start off with the commenting or sharing of other people's posts.
I think it's a great way of sort of putting your toe in the water. If you're not comfortable yet with posting, it's a great way to start commenting on other posts. I understand that when you comment on somebody else's post, you're helping them in their algorithm, and you're kind of giving them a certain positive feedback, which they may pay back to you in the future by commenting on your posts. And suddenly you're on their radar, and you're somebody they're thinking of when they need an attorney in the practice area you're in and the geographic region you're in. So I certainly encourage that, liking posts, commenting on posts, sharing posts. That's a great way of developing relationships with other people. In terms of accepting connections, understand you're limited to 30,000 connections, which is a big number. I've passed that number, but most people never will. So I recommend that you go ahead and connect with people. Obviously there's certain people who don't use the platform the right way. They're going to seek a connection and they're going to start spamming you, and then you can always block them or remove them. But I think most people on the platform treat it with the respect it deserves, and it's a great way to meet people. You just don't know where your next case is going to come from. You really don't. You think it's going to come from attorneys that do what you do in another state, or maybe it's a certain in-house person that lives in a certain area. Anybody can refer you a case. Steve could refer you a case. Anybody in this call could refer you a case. And litigation happens all the time. Transactional issues happen all the time. And so I encourage you to build, and grow your following. And if you ever hit the 30,000, people can start following you. There's no limit to the number of followers you have. And the larger your following, the greater the likelihood that something's going to come from some corner of the world that you were least expecting.
Terrific. Thank you, Frank. Any questions before we move on, in particular about strategy or posting or content?
I have a question, Steve. Hey, Frank, what about posts that my firm may put out, say about me? What's the best way? Should I share that? Should I comment on it? Should I just like it? What do you recommend on that?
Yeah, I would share it, and because it provides more of an outlet. If you like it, or if you just comment on it, it may not be pushed out to as many people through the LinkedIn algorithm. You can kind of share it and say, oh, thanks to so-and-so for noting that I did this or whatever it might be, certainly you would encourage other people at your firm to share it or at least comment or like on it to increase the following of that post and push it out to more people.
I have one other thing I'd like to ask about, Frank, if you don't mind. And I do this a little bit. I used to do it more, but I've slowed down. It's creating a LinkedIn pod, or at least having a few people, 5 or 10, that are pretty serious LinkedIn users, and having them sort of help you build that post out. How do you feel about that? Is that good, bad? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for those who aren't familiar, there's these things called pods that are popular among various LinkedIn users and other platform users as well. The idea is that you have a group of individuals, anywhere between 10 and 20, where you notify them whenever you're going to share a post, and then they jump on your post and they comment and like and share it in order to trick the algorithm of LinkedIn to push it out to more people. I think it's perfectly suitable if that's what you want to do. I think if you do it too much, I think people start realizing that's what's happening. I kind of see, and again, maybe I spend too much time on the platform, but I can pretty much tell early on when a post is being pushed out on purpose versus it being organic. I think most people aren't that sophisticated because they're not that much spending that much time on the platform, and I guess it's not that big of a deal. But what you would do, let's say you're a trust estates lawyer, and you have 20 other lawyers in different areas, and you say to yourselves, we're going to encourage each other, and we're in different geographic regions and different practice areas, and we're going to have some sort of listserv or group email, or maybe some LinkedIn message thing that you guys can put together and say, I just posted, can you guys comment on it? And then obviously everybody in the group has to be committed to doing that. So that's another level of commitment that you have to appreciate. That if you're going to do that, you're not, you're just not getting the benefit of it. You like, obviously somebody post, you're gonna have to go out and go to their post and comment on it, and it works. It does work. I've never done it, but some people have done it with a lot of reward and a lot of being able opportunity to get their message out there.
And Frank, I may have misspoke when I said that was my last question. I have one more. I've noticed that most of the posts, and I follow you regularly, I see your posts multiple times a day, and they're almost always a text, meaning you're just writing something really positive, you're writing something really helpful. But there's people posting video, there's people posting, podcasts, there's people posting, all types of content, visual content, graphics. What are your, you're focusing, it seems like more on the text posts. Value either way?
I agree. I think, first of all, you have to find what you're comfortable with. I think video is really taking a larger foothold on LinkedIn and other platforms. I did video for a while and I stopped because it was a lot of work. And I just, at some point I'll probably pick it up again. You can do it on your phone, by the way. You don't have to have professional equipment to do videos. Videos, if you are going to do them, keep them to a minute or less. Remember, short attention span. Again, this would be a good video series would be if you did like a 10-point article on something, each point could be one video that you do over 10 days. Videos get a lot of traction. LinkedIn likes videos. They do push those to the top. If you're going to do video text, make sure that you have something done so that the text is transcribed on the bottom of your screen. There are different platforms, none of them are coming to mind, where they generally charge you $1.50 per minute, and you send it to them, and then they send you back the text with a link that you can kind of embed the language. That's what most people, when they watch and they're looking on their phone, they're looking at it in public places, so they can't listen to the audio. So if you're going to do a video, make sure you inscribe the text. Some people are very big on images. They use a lot of photo stock images. Again, it made sense because remember, you only have 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention. And so if you are going to do a video, you got to jump right into what you have to say and then say it. There are a lot of people out there that, that help you do videos. Shay Rowbottom, if somebody comes to mind, who helps lawyers do video content. There are others. But you have to figure out what works for you. I did video for a while. It does take a little bit more time. It takes a little bit more energy. And I found that my better approach was sort of this blitzkrieg approach, where I was doing short written content, only a few sentences long, and pushing those out. And that was working for me, and again, that goes back to the beta testing comment I made earlier. See what works for you. Video may work for you. Images may work for you, short content may work for you, long form will work for you. You can also do articles on LinkedIn. I've done a few of those. I never found that was really a good resource for me, but some swear by it. Now there's a new feature where you can allow to do newsletters. That's something else you may consider. You can do LinkedIn Live. You have to apply to be on LinkedIn Live. I got accepted back in September. I haven't done it yet. But some people swear by LinkedIn Live, very similar to Facebook Live and other platforms where you literally go live, you take questions and people comment. And so these are, you have to try different things, and you have to know who you are, what your personality is, what you're comfortable with, and what you're willing to do. And there's always a fear factor. You have to get past that, and you have to kind of move beyond that. But once you get past that point and you're still not comfortable, let's say doing videos, don't do videos. If you're comfortable doing LinkedIn Live, do that. But, this is all very much a process that you have to kind of figure out, take a few weeks, maybe in a few months. And at the end of it, you'll say, okay, this is what works for me. These are the posts that are working for me. This is the way I should post. This is the way I'm delivering content. And this is how I'm attracting business and people and eyes and so forth.
And don't be afraid to start slow. I mean, if you post once a week and then maybe you get comfortable with it, then you post twice. I think I was posting 3 times a week up until about 6 months ago, and then started doing, a post a day. And now I'm going to be doing, I think, even multiple posts a day of all kinds of different content and things that I think will be helpful to, my audience and people that want to learn about business development in the legal space. Thank you, Frank. That was great. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. I'm going to share my screen again. And what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about business development with LinkedIn as the tool. So we all know that networking is a big deal, right? Getting out, building relationships, connecting with new strategic partners, people that could be your referral sources. And also you would love to get in front of that next GC or that next CEO, and just not sure how to do that. And so what I've found early on is one of the key values with LinkedIn is the ability to leverage your connections. So, when we talk about, connecting with a lot of people, what ends up happening is like that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It starts to get you build out your degree of connectivity. And so we have first degree connections where I'm connected with Frank. That's a first degree connection. A second degree connection is where I'm connected to Frank and Frank is connected to someone else. And then a third is obviously another level away from there. The target point is the second degree connection. So if I pull up someone here, and I'll just pull up someone that pops. All right, so Brian Weinthal and I have a lot of fun together. He likes to give me a hard time on LinkedIn and in the comment section, especially when I promote another labor and employment attorney on my podcast. He always has something fruitful to say and antagonistic, but that's his deal. So I know that Brian and I have a good relationship, and I think that he'd be open to introducing me to people. Okay, that's the first thing. Do you have a relationship? If you don't, then what I'm about to tell you means nothing, because you're talking to a stranger about another stranger, and stranger danger. We want to stay away from that. We want to try to get what I call quality introductions. So if I pull up Brian Weinthal and I click on his connections, it's going to pull up 791 results. Now, do I want to sit and go through 791 results to find lawyers that he knows that might make sense for me? If that's what I'm looking to do, is I'm looking to meet lawyers that Brian knows. Okay. So what I can do is I can get rid of some connections, in particular, first degree connections. So I'm going to close that out and I'm going to show the updated results. It'll go down to probably 654. Okay. Now I can also say, well, you know what? I really want to focus on Chicago. So I'm going to focus on the Greater Chicago area, Chicago, and that's going to knock it down a little further to 484 results. So still a lot of results. Now this might work. This might work for people that have the regular free LinkedIn. But if you have the premium, then you get a little more access to the advanced filters. So I'm going to go to all filters. And I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to put in under industry law practice. And I'm going to show the results on that. And now that's going to knock it down to 94. And that's where I'm going to stop. I could also put in title, like if I want to talk to partners, managing partners, etc., I can do that. So what I do here is I look at Betty Jang, I think that's Betty Jang, and she's a general counsel. So right off the bat, I can say, well, I'm not really interested in meeting general counsels. You might be, but I'm not. I'm interested in meeting private practice attorneys. So I can scroll down here, and here's an attorney that works at his firm, and I can say, all right, so here's Frederick Mendelson, and not only am I connected through Brian, but I have 41 other shared connections. So actually 42 other shared connections. And if Brian doesn't know Frederick very well, although I'm assuming he would, he's at the same firm, I could go to my other connections and see if they have an inroad with Frederick. And obviously I'm going to pick the connections where I have the closest relationship. So for example, Tracy Conan, I don't really know that well. Okay. Not anywhere near as well as Brian, but if I click on these, it might give me some idea of other people that might connect me to Frederick if it isn't through Brian. So what I would do, and again, this is with a relationship that's pretty strong, is I would go through this list and I would write down maybe 5 or 10 names of private practice attorneys that I might be interested in meeting. I would schedule a networking meeting with Brian. I would ask him to look at my LinkedIn if he's interested, or I could just help him, through just Q&A. And then Brian and I meet. We build, we continue to talk about life and the kids and COVID and everything else. But at some point we get down to, and I say, Brian, I've been thinking about a couple people I think might be good for you that I know that I've met recently, defense, labor and employment defense attorneys in other states that might be interested in working with you here in Chicago. And he'd be like, oh, that's wonderful. And then I'd say, by the way, I went through your LinkedIn. I've identified some people. Do you mind taking a moment to go through that list? And he says, sure. And then we go through the list together. And of course, because, it's not always perfect, we whittle it down from 10 names to like, say, 2. And then I would walk him through how to make a quality introduction, because I don't want to have to chase after somebody that he thinks might be a good fit, but isn't. So I would coach him up on, would you call or email these 2 individuals, talk me up a little bit that I actually know what I'm talking about and I know what I'm doing. And people I've worked with where we've been successful. So, Brian isn't a client of mine, but he knows a bunch of attorneys that I've worked with where they've done really, really well. So he can talk to that. And then he can share that, am I someone that they'd like to meet? Well, maybe 1 out of 2 says yes. And now he's setting up an email introduction that looks like it's going to turn out to be a meeting and a potential new client for me. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm also being proactive in helping him with introductions. So that's the easiest way to use LinkedIn proactively to actually get business or get new meetings that maybe you never would have had before. Okay. Another thing that you can do is you can type in either an industry or type in a company name. So let's say that I want to get into, let's say I want to get into Walt Disney. And I'm just kind of coming up with this off the cuff. Okay, 22,000 employees. And let's say that I'm a lawyer and I want to meet the general counsel or someone in the legal department at Walt Disney. All right. What I can do is I can click on that number of employees, 21,000 results. Okay. And then what I can do is I can go in and try to use the filters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to the title and I'm going to put in general counsel. Now, I'm not guaranteeing this is going to come up. This could be a total disaster in this little demo I'm doing for you all, but let's see what happens. All right, so interesting. So Armando Rodriguez. Okay, so here we go. Employment and litigation attorney at Walt Disney World Resort. All right, now how am I connected? Well, I'm connected through Frank. Now, Frank may or may know, do you know Armando?
I went to undergrad with him.
Oh, well, there you go. So if I'm interested in getting into Walt Disney and I've got a great relationship with Frank and Frank has a good background with Armando, that might be an inroad to Walt Disney World. Now, what was my inroad and what was my opportunity for Walt Disney World 5 seconds ago? It was 0. I had 0 opportunity at Walt Disney World. Now, what's my opportunity at Walt Disney World? It's a little better. Maybe not perfect, but it's a little better. So either Frank, Michael, or one other shared connection may be my inroad into Walt Disney World to meet this individual. And even if he isn't making the decisions about handing out work, if I can build a relationship with Armando, maybe he can get me to the right person at that point. So this is something, whether you're looking to get into State Farm, you're looking to get into a commercial real estate company, whatever the case might be, you can pull up the company name and you can start searching within their employees and seeing where the inside connections might be and how they're going to benefit, moving in or advancing the ball. And back to something earlier, Frank mentioned about, we were talking about commenting on other people's posts. Another thought might be, and I can stop the share for a second here. Another point might be, let's say that Armando is a LinkedIn user and he's posting content and enjoys posting content. I can comment on his content. I can share his content, and it might take a month or a year. I don't know, but I'm building slowly a relationship with Armando through being a fan, through being someone that appreciates his posts. And eventually he may be open to meeting with me. So I'm getting an inside connection just through sharing and commenting on his posts, which could be really, really interesting. Okay. So that's the business development side. Again, it might be 15 minutes a week where you just pull up a couple of people, clients of yours or other strategic partners, and go through their contacts and make that a regular routine of yours once a week to do it. You might find a couple new clients a month just from doing that one thing, which takes very little time. Okay. So I think if we're just kind of recapping what we've covered quite a bit of ground in just under an hour. Setting up your profile so that you're getting noticed and you're doing the right things there. You're thinking about strategy and how to use LinkedIn, how to post, how to comment, how to get active with it, and how to, what you should be presenting and what you should be proactively doing. And then the business development side. Okay. Frank, anything to add before we move to some questions?
No, actually, while you were doing your presentation, I actually changed my handle to Miami Mentor, which is, as you mentioned, only took like 5 seconds to do. So try to find something that's easy to remember, because this has really become our modern business card. We don't really hand out business cards anymore. We tell people, oh, look me up on my website or look me up on LinkedIn. If the easier you can make it for them to find you, the easier it is for them to find you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So before we kind of wrap up in the next couple minutes, are there any outstanding questions on LinkedIn that you'd like to ask Frank or myself? Anybody? And then I think, yeah, Shireen and some Jordan, they've posted some great information in the chat section. So also feel free to check that out as well. Wrapping up a little bit here, what I wanted to just share is a sort of a favor. I'm going to be sending out a survey on the presentation today from Frank and myself. And again, if there were things that we missed, I'd love to hear about them. If there's some good takeaways that you received, love to hear about that as well. But if you would take 30 seconds, we didn't, there was no charge for this. This was a free presentation, and it would really be meaningful if we could get some feedback by completing that survey. That's going to go out directly after we close out this. I'll also be sending everybody the recording, so you'll have access to that. But if you could fill out that survey, that would be really terrific and appreciated. Frank, any final words as we wrap up?
No, I mean, I think to summarize, LinkedIn is really sort of the platform you guys should all be on. If you don't like it, you don't like it, but at least give yourself a chance to try it. Dedicate the next 30 days to explore it, to augment your profile, to reach out to people, to make connections, take some of those connections offline, either through a local coffee or through a Zoom call, and see what happens. LinkedIn isn't something that's going to work for you overnight. It does take time. It does take some investment. So give yourself 30 days and see how you feel about it at the end of the 30 days. And if at that point you still don't feel it's for you, don't do it. But if you do, then keep exploring it and keep pursuing it and keep investing into it.
Terrific. Thank you. And legal marketing and business development, if you think of like a pie chart where there's a bunch of slices of pie, content creation is a slice, active networking and business development is a slice, social media is a slice. And, we're not saying to get heavily involved in Instagram and selling t-shirts. We're talking about your professional business networking on LinkedIn and your brand and sharing content and being a value add to the community, the legal community, the business community. So highly encourage everybody to take the 30 days, as Frank said, to be proactive with it. If you have questions, I know Frank's very open to answering questions. I certainly am. So don't be shy about reaching out to us on LinkedIn or through our direct emails, which are on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or want to just talk out anything, happy to do that. So that with that, we're going to wrap up. I just want to thank everybody again for taking the time. The survey's coming your way, and just give it a try or take it to the next level if you already are on it. And thanks for spending your morning with us today. All right,
Thanks,
everybody.
Steve.
Thank you, Frank. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Be well.